Well, welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So I wanted to do a video where I came up with some new CGC 9.8 ideas because, a lot of the investment grade books that we talk about on some of the lists are some of my personal favorites, and it's easy to kind of include them in the list. But for this list, I really wanted to do some research and get some key issues that I haven't really talked about before too much on the channel. Now, I do got two books that are on the list, and admittedly, Batman Beyond #1 here in the CGC 9.8 I have recommended quite a bit, but they still kind of fit good on like an underfollowed list. But the other 5 comic books, like I haven't really mentioned them on the channel at all, and even though they're kind of like secondary key issues, like I was doing the research for this video and really like, wow, these are great investment grade books, like. And actually so much so that I went out and purchased one of the books on the list. So, yeah, I think some great ideas, I think, for the team from the whole list here. And, yeah, I was so compelled that I went out and grabbed one of them. And there's another one on eBay, too, that we'll mention. And we'll get into some of the details, too, about it. But, a full short list here, 7 underfollowed CGC 9.8 comics that you can buy and hold forever. Yeah, great investment grade books, even though these are secondary-ish kind of key issues, not so obvious ones. Still great investment grade books. Would invite you really quickly to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. And yeah, I'd love to have you on our comic book collecting and comic book investing team. And we're, if you notice, we're just approaching 1,000 subscribers. And that's awesome. I'm so thankful. So thanks to the whole team for, getting us close to 1,000. I'm sure we'll, reach over 1,000 here in the next couple days. And I definitely got to get a giveaway going. Maybe give away some of my raw books. Feels a little bit weird to kind of celebrate during this time, I think, with kind of this coronavirus thing. But, we'll figure something out. But do want to just say a huge thank you to the whole team out there for subscribing and commenting and engaging and messaging me on Instagram. And I've had a lot of fun just talking with the team and talking about comic books. That's why I made this channel. And I just love talking about comic books. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because we're 1,000 strong now. The team's growing certainly. So thanks for all that. Now, let's get right in here to the short list of 7 underfollowed CGC 9.8 comic books that you can buy and hold forever. First on the list, and it's the one that I purchased, it's a Marvel Spotlight version 2, number 6. So this is the first appearance of Star-Lord, Peter Quill. And it's such a great first appearance that really flies under the radar. Now, one thing to say, this is the first comic book appearance of Star-Lord, Peter Quill. The whole first appearance of Guardians of the Galaxy, I believe, was in like a magazine, which is quite rare, but, still these first comic book appearances are quite collectible. Great cover on this one, a really underfollowed key issue, I gotta say. And, you get the kind of leader of the Guardians of the Galaxies for Star-Lord. So cool. Let's look on the census here. 77 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. And 18% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So under 20, the 9.8 ratio. It's a 1980s book, though. So in 1980, it came out. So it's not really, really rare for the age. You'd maybe like to see that 9.8 ratio a bit lower, but there's not a lot graded of this book. So that's a little bit of the trade-off, I think, when you get into an underfollowed book. They're not relatively as rare because there's not tons of people just finding the keys and getting them graded. Still, I think this is one of the top kind of books on this list, although there's some great books on the list. And as I mentioned, this is one I did end up purchasing. And we'll talk about price here because I had a look on Go Collect and just kind of in the research for the video, and it said the fair market value was $260. And then I went on eBay to kind of just do a little bit more research, see if there was one on eBay. There's one on eBay for a buy it now. That had just popped up in like a day or two ago or whatever, and it was for $230. And a buy it now, so competitively priced buy it now with good shipping to Canada. With that fair market value being shown on Go Collect at $260, I did some completed searches on eBay as well for the book, and I didn't see any completed sales for this book in the CGC 9.8, which kind of points at that 77 number. There's only 77 of them in the world, so you're not going to just have like a lot of sales of this often. So I thought $230 was a reasonable price for a pretty rare book, first appearance of Star-Lord. in comic books. And I'm a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They're probably my favorite MCU movies, to be honest. So I was really happy to pick this book up for $2.30 it was. Yeah, so I think a fair price for this, anywhere from kind of $2.25 to $2.75. I think, mine was a direct edition, so if you get the newsstand edition, maybe even closer to $300. I think it makes sense for first appearance of Star-Lord. If it was a really nice newsstand in the CGC 9.8, I think it's still a really good investment grade book to consider. And yeah, you got to be patient. There's 77 of them out there, but this is a really good underfollowed CGC 9.8 comic book, I think, to grab. Okay, next book here is another really good underfollowed one that's really affordable too. This is a cool one. It's Marvel Age number 41, the Stan Lee cover. Yeah, really collectible Stan Lee cover. And, I think this is a great book where if you're a bit scared away by some of the prices of signed Stan Lee books, like I am, I see, a lot of the key issues that I really love in CGC 9.8, if they're signed by Stan Lee, it's like double the price almost at least. So this book, I think, is a good way to kind of have some Stan Lee collectible in your comic book collection. But not have to pay out the ass for it kind of thing. So, yeah, Marvel Age 41, look on the census here. There's 104 CGC 9.8s on the blue label. 104 of them out there. 28.7% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. This is kind of a mid-80s book, so that's kind of a normal mid-80s CGC 9.8 ratio. Not really rare in any way, but not too many of them, though. 104 out there. So, price for this book. Looking at some completed sales, like, if you're really, really lucky, you can get it close to $100. Right now on eBay, the cheapest one, I think, was like $160 or something like that. So, if you're patient, I think, $125, let's call it, is like a really good, fair price. If you're patient, wait for an auction. And yeah, one on eBay, the cheapest one is like $160. So, $150, $160 would probably be a decent kind of pay-up price. You do see these on eBay for like, that's the cheapest one on eBay. There's others for like $225, $250. So, there's some buy it nows for this book that are quite expensive. But if you're patient in an auction, this is a really good, just affordable, underfollowed CGC 9.8 comic book that I think, because Stan Man's on the cover, it's going to be a really cool collectible to have over time. Like, as time goes on, it'll just get cooler. And yeah, one that flies under the radar. Yeah, again, I think it's, with this whole list, it's not one that like really is a main key issue that a lot of comic book collectors think about. Okay, next book here is an Incredible Hulk 271. Yeah, first comic book appearance of Raccoon. So kind of sticking with some of the Guardians of the Galaxy's first appearance. This is a fantastic book to get. It's certainly an investment grade book. There's something about Incredible Hulk books specifically. So this is a big Incredible Hulk key of this age. And just such a collectible book. Really cool a white cover that's pretty rare in the CGC 9.8. So yeah, looking on the census, there's 347 CGC 9.8s in the blue label for this book. And 13% is a CGC 9.8 ratio. So getting close to that 10%, which is really juicy investment grade kind of rarity. So this book is pretty rare. Very popular though. There's 347 out there, which is, that's not a lot, but certainly more than like just 100. And it is because it is just a really collectible big key issue. So price for this one, I've saw in an auction in direct editions, sort of maybe just kicking under $500. So, if you're really, really lucky, you might get something for around $450 for a direct version for this book. But, even a direct version will sell for like a $500, $550. Like that's, I think the fair market value is sort of, let's call it $525. I actually didn't look on Go Collect for this one. Fair market value, but I would say is about $525. Someone on the team a couple videos ago, had purchased this one for, I think it was $569.99 in the CGC 9.8. Really great looking one. I'm pretty sure it was in the direct. So, this was one of the comic books I sort of had in mind for this video, and I do have to, it was Joseph on Instagram, actually, team member Joseph, who gave me some inspiration because I went out and I grabbed this book as well. So, 2 unbox videos coming up. I don't have them, otherwise I'd be showing them to you on the video. But I did grab an Incredible Hulk 271, a newsstand version, for $550. And it was a pristine newsstand. It's perfect. Perfectly centered, amazing colors, newsstand, the rare newsstand. So everything you'd kind of want from this book. So this was the book that I mentioned on last video where it was on eBay for $650, and I had messaged him directly and added him on Instagram and saw that he was like a well-known comic book dealer that had good feedback and was well-respected, I guess, and things like that. So I said, hey, you want to do this for $550 direct, like just do a PayPal thing? And he agreed to that. So yeah, a book that was $650 with happened to get it for $550 because it wasn't a best offer, which I think is a fair price, especially considering it was just perfectly centered, a newsstand version. So yeah, I can't wait to show you guys that one on an unbox. But yeah, clearly I recommend this book because I just went out and bought it, and obviously went out and bought the first Star-Lord too. So kind of stocked up on my pretty much two favorite Guardians of the Galaxy's characters. So yeah, you know what? I think if you're lucky on Incredible Hulk 271, maybe under 500. But you know, if you are, you know, like if you're like me, if you see a really nice newsstand, you probably won't be able to get that for under $550. Those are some good prices to aim for, though. Okay, so the next book is one I do have, and it's a great Underfollowed Batman book. It's a Batman 366. This is basically first Jason Todd Robin, so the first second Robin pretty much. Although like 2 issues after this, he officially becomes Robin, but this is the first time he puts on the Robin costume. And yeah, this is the newsstand version here of this book, which is pretty cool to have the newsstand version of this 1983 book, the CGC 9.8 white pages. Yeah, I got another one here. Yeah, I got my other 366 here in the direct. One of my favorite issues. And yeah, so from Batman 357 to Batman 401, I think it was a very low print, so lower printed as opposed to Superman books of the era and Marvel books of the era. So Batman pretty low printed during this era. And from that whole era, this is my favorite book, basically. A favorite cover. And still pretty, you know, somewhat affordable. Because there is like Batman 357, which is the first Killer Croc, first Jason Todd. That's the big key. But a bit of an underwhelming cover on that one. So this is just basically my pick of the whole range. And it's still somewhat affordable in the CGC 9.8. Although pretty hard to find. Let's look on the census though. 149 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. 30% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. And typical with Batman books, they're in better shape. Like Batman collectors just keep their books in better shape. And there wasn't as many of them out there, so that works against it being super, super rare too. So 30%, not the best CGC 9.8 ratio. But it kind of reflected in the price. Like it's not too expensive. So I got the price here. It's, you know, let's call it 175 to 275. Because I think this book, with there only 149 out there, you do see some kind of sell for $250, $299, especially in the newsstand. I've saw this book sell for $300 in the newsstand before. But then every now and then you see an auction, and you can maybe get a direct version in an auction, like a fire sale auction, for like $175-ish, I would say, is the lower portion of fair market value for this book. And yeah, it doesn't seem to be one that pops up a lot. I have 2, but it's still one I do searches for because I would like to have another one in the CGC 9.8, to be honest. Because yeah, it's just my favorite book from that low print run Batman era. And yeah, definitely I think on an underfollowed list, it certainly could fit on an underfollowed list. And yeah, you get the classic Walt Simonson Joker cover. And he went on to do a lot of other kind of Joker books too that look really cool. And he's got very classic looking Joker actually, yeah. And yeah, this book kind of stands out because it doesn't have sort of the normal Batman banner. And yeah, just such a great Joker cover of the era that I think will continue to get more classic and more classic. And it is well collected among Batman collectors. It's well wanted. It's a great book. And yeah, part of that low print Batman run, my favorite issue from that low print run. So yeah, I wanted to recommend it on an underfollowed video. The next book is a very cool book that, you know, I've already bought 2 on this list. This might be the 3rd one. It's a Marvel Premiere number 47. So this is the first time Scott Lang becomes Ant-Man. Really cool cover too. This has got a great cover of, you know, Scott Lang, Ant-Man right on the front. A Bob Layton cover, I believe it is. It's a 1979 book too, so it's you know, a pretty old book. And I'll compare it to another book really quick, but just quickly, there's 157 CGC 9.8s in the blue label on the census, so not too many of them. 8.5% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So yeah, under 10 CGC 9.8 ratio. Nice and rare. 8.5% of all graded copies were CGC 9.8 comic books for Marvel Premiere 47. That's really low. That's a low portion of the all graded books as a CGC 9.8. So really rare comic. Yeah, this one is really standing out to me as being a great book on the list. You get a first appearance of a real iconic superhero. And, superheroes sort of are preferred to supervillains, I would say, too. So that's a small plus for this book, a small positive. Great cover by Bob Layton. Amazing cover. And then you look on the census, it looks really good on the census. Yeah, with that under 10% CGC 9.8 ratio, 8.5% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. Interesting about this book, because we'll talk about price, but yeah, there's Marvel Premiere 47. There is one on eBay right now, CGC 9.8 white pages, a newsstand version, looking really good, and it's I believe it's $630 or best offer. Has really good shipping to Canada too. So this is one that I've been looking on eBay, and I haven't pulled the trigger yet. So if you're seeing this and maybe you're more compelled on this book than me, it's a really nice copy in the newsstand for this book. Yeah, and I think I've grabbed a couple books here in the last little bit, but if I didn't, I probably would have went after this one online. Yeah, $630 or best offer. Talk about price. The fair market value on Go Collect, they have it at $500 even. So this $630 or best offer on the internet, like, I think if you start your offer at $475, see how that goes. That would be a really good starting point, with the hope that you can grab it around $500 because, yeah, it is in a newsstand and it's a really nicely centered, great looking CGC 9.8. Which, yeah, I mean, I almost bought it really in the last couple of days here, but pretty expensive book. First Scott Lang Ant-Man, first appearance of a great iconic hero. So yeah, Avengers 181 is the other comic I wanted to sort of compare it to, because that's the first appearance of Scott Lang. So you might think, like, he doesn't become Ant-Man in that one. It's just his first appearance. So you might think, like, oh, that book might be more expensive or more wanted, but that book on the census is not as rare. The CGC 9.8 ratio is like 18%, I think, or 19%, whereas this one is 8.5%. This one is so much more rare. And that other book, I mentioned a good price for Avengers 181 would be to try to get it around $300. So the price shows that the 9.8 ratio, for Marvel Premiere 47 is lower. It shows that it's more rare, the price. Because, yeah, I think if you can get it for $500, I think that's a great deal on, like, a really great looking one in a new case, CGC 9.8, like the one that's online now. But yeah, anywhere from $500 to $600, I think is, if you really like Ant-Man and this newsstand one that's online right now, I'd recommend to go check it out. Hopefully you're seeing this video early if you're in the market for this book. But, yeah, Marvel Premiere 47, first Scott Lang Ant-Man with that low CGC 9.8 ratio is a great underfollowed, book to consider. Yeah, whether it's in the raw or the 9.8 or whatever it is. All right, next book is one we haven't talked about too much either on the channel very much, is Nova #1. Yeah, it's the first appearance of Nova, who's Richard Rider. And yeah, Nova is a book that I'm not too into personally. I never really got into collecting Nova books, but I do know a lot of people that are into reading some of the newer Nova books and into the character Nova more than I am, certainly. So there is a pretty good cult following for Nova. And yeah, I see this sell quite often too, which is good. You like to see, these big key issues that are quite expensive to sell, and that just means, like, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that like this character. So another great thing about Nova #1, looks really good on the census. It is an older book, 1976, I believe it was, but 368 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. And 8.6% is the CGC 9.8 ratio, so kind of neck and neck with first Ant-Man, the last book we just did in rarity. Now this book being a little bit older than Marvel Premiere 47, so price-wise for Nova #1, Yeah, the fair market value on Go Collect, they have it at $900, and I've saw anywhere from $800 to approaching $1,000 in this book. I remember auctions. A really nice one that's just looking great in the case, in a new CGC 9.8 case. Usually will go over 900 in this book, and yeah, a really big call following for Nova 1. And yeah, I think even though there still is that big call following, I think it still is underfollowed. It's a secondary key that not a lot of people think about right off the top of their head, certainly. Where like, Spider-Man and Avengers and all those keys come to mind, and X-Men before, and Wolverine and all that. But yeah, Nova 1, definitely one to consider. If you're a Nova fan, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm more attracted to some of the Guardians of the Galaxy's first appearances and the first Ant-Man. Yeah, Nova a little bit before my time. I never really got into him too much. So, but if you are into him, yeah, it looks great on the Census and the CGC 9.8. It's a great investment grade book. And yeah, like I said, the market is thriving for that. I've seen those books are wanted by collectors, certainly. Okay, and the last book on the list. Yeah, we got some great new ideas, I think, there. And yeah, certainly two of the new ideas, I felt so compelled that I wanted to grab them. But the last book is one we've talked about quite often on the channel. Batman Beyond, number 1. Definitely an underfollowed book. Definitely one that can easily kind of, skip your mind if you're thinking about key issues to kind of buy and want. But yeah, I think Batman Beyond, number 1. It's the first appearance of Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, and yeah, gotta love Terry McGinnis, cool, super cool kid. And I would certainly recommend to watch the Batman Beyond cartoons. They're so great. And I think with Batman Beyond, you get this super cult following, and it does fit in an underfollowed list because it's not, a super obvious first appearance. I think certainly there's more obvious ones, but I think what you get with Batman Beyond, because it was in the late 90s, came out in the late 90s, it was pretty low printed for, comics during that period, and even comics in general in the late 90s were low printed. So yeah, if we look on the Census, there's only 172 CGC 9.8s out there. And, for a first appearance of Batman Beyond, a pretty popular cult followed character, I always say there should be like 300 to 400 of these in the CGC 9.8. Would be a more realistic, amount of CGC 9.8s that would match the demand. But I think because it was just such a low print, there's only 172 out there in the CGC 9.8, and that's why the price is really high. Like the price for this book, I saw one. It was like 2 months ago now. One for $475 in an auction. So that's conceivably near the lower end, $475. In an auction. But I think, if someone was really motivated to get rid of this, you could probably get it around $450. But if you wanted it now and you didn't really want to be too patient, it's over $500 basically. But yeah, it is a really great first appearance. A first appearance that is, I think, overlooked. Yeah, it's overlooked quite a bit. But I don't think it should be overlooked. The pricing action has been great on it in the last 5 years. I mean, it's obviously about $500 now, let's call it. So I think that'll continue. Yeah, this is just, again, there's 172 in the CGC 9.8. I think the popularity of Batman Beyond, there should be like 400 or 500, but because it was so low printed, you're not getting that, and it doesn't match the demand, so that's why it's $500. And yeah, but I think that'll continue. And yeah, for me, I got 2. I'm sort of on the record as saying I do kind of want another one, so it's one I want to kind of stock up on. Yeah, it's one of my kind of top modern books, I would say. But definitely, I think fits well on an underfollowed list. And yeah, the value has done really good in the last 5 years, so I think that'll just continue on into the future if you got a long-term time horizon. Okay, so I will put the full list in the description below, all the comic books that I recommended here. Just concluding up, it's such a great list, I thought. Like, doing the research, I was, just some really great key issues that I don't talk too much about on the channel. So it is really hard to kind of pick, one top recommendation. I think, obviously, I felt so compelled that I wanted the first Star-Lord and the first Rocket Raccoon. So I think those two books are just really, really cool. And I think my third pick would be that Marvel Premiere 47, the first Scott Lang as Ant-Man. But, you know, obviously Batman 366 is like my favorite Batman book from that era too. So I super recommend that one as well. And yeah, again, to make that point, even though these are secondary key issues, there's possibly more potential in these ones than, you know, some main first appearances like, you know, first Venom or first, you know, just talking about just some of the main first appearances that are more collected. Yeah, some of these underfollowed ones still as iconic, but more underfollowed, which I think could equal more potential over time, just as far as like values and going up and things like that. And yeah, I really kind of feel that with that Star-Lord book, even though it's not too rare, the CGC 9.8 ratio. I think for $230, the first Star-Lord, like in the CGC, the best grade you can buy, like that's going to look really good in like 10 or 20 years, I would think. Okay, now, yeah, those top CGC 9.8 ratios, yeah, the Marvel Premiere 47 the first Scott Lang Ant-Man, and Nova #1 are the two most rare books on the list. So if you do like Nova, I mean, Nova #1 is the book to get. Yeah, and in the CGC 9.8, it's really rare. Really good investment grade ratio on Nova 1. Yeah, that'll be it though for this video today. Yeah, definitely the goal was to get almost the whole list to just be books that I hardly haven't talked about, you know, in the last 6 months, let's call it, on the channel here. So yeah, some really good underfollowed books, and again, I will have the full list in the description below. So thanks so much for watching today, and yeah, I'll invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. Obviously, we're just coming in on 1,000 subscribers, so yeah, a lot of things to be thankful for, and thank you so much for watching, and thanks for all the comments and the support and everything, and some of the messages and conversations I have on Instagram. I know I always say that, but they're just really fun, and I have a great time talking to the whole team out there about comic books. So yeah, message me on Instagram if you do have any questions. But thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you got some good ideas on today's video. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you on the next one.